All right, hey everybody, welcome to week 1 of UX UI AI. I'm really excited to have you all here. I think it's going to be a fun class. I've been kind of thinking about teaching this class for like almost a year now, and I feel like we're kind of at a point where there are enough people that are using these tools or interested in these tools and ready to discuss things. So this week will be a little bit of just sort of a mix of things. We'll talk a little about just sort of the general AI terms we're going to use in class, talk about some objectives and some themes, and then next week we'll sort of dive into things in like a deep way. So I just want to talk a little bit about sort of the course structure, what you can expect from this class. If you've never taken a class with me before, you can kind of get a sense of how they work, and then we'll go from there. So pretty much true of all of my like online classes, this one's kind of an experiment. I'm going to try some things a little bit differently than I have done in the past, but you are sort of my guinea pigs for this. So I try to keep the cost at a point where you might recognize that it's not a tried and true like class I teach every quarter type of thing. So it's a little bit of an experiment. Your feedback is always welcome. Like, please DM me if you have feedback like, hey, this wasn't really working for me. Can you clarify this section, whatever it is. If there's enough Q&A from folks, then we'll probably try and even do maybe some recordings of like some responses to things. We'll sort of see how that goes. And then I will usually add, things that happen in each week. Like, people are like, hey, I didn't really get a good idea of what you meant by this. I might just record a quick 10-minute video that sort of expands on it. We'll talk a little about the sort of course structure and how many recordings you expect, that sort of thing. But I may choose to add new material every once in a while. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily required material, but if you are sort of stuck somewhere and I see enough people that are stuck somewhere, I might record another tutorial to sort of explain it. I know many of us are probably working full-time jobs right now or doing other things. So there's also no expectation of like you watching every video the minute I release it and being able to respond to it. I'm sort of expecting people to watch stuff throughout the week, but even if that doesn't happen in the midst of a week or you're a week behind, like, it's not the end of the world. So there will be new videos every Monday. It'll be a mix of different types of videos. So some of it'll be full lectures. I try to break them up into smaller chunks. So if you do decide like, hey, this wasn't really interested, this one isn't really interested in me and I've got sort of a short amount of time this week, you can sort of skip it or watch it later. In general, I think we'll do about an hour and a half of videos every week. Some of those will be tutorials. So like for this class, there will actually be some tutorials, but it'll be a lot less lighter on tutorials than I have in previous classes. This will really be a mix of lectures, theory, talking about different concepts, and then a little bit of application on learning about a model, that sort of thing. So the main places to find those will be in our Slack channel, which you should be already added to. If you aren't yet right now, please DM me and I can add you to it. And then there's also a Google Doc. So that Google Doc will be sort of the lives in stone sort of recording of the class and the structure. All of the video materials are yours to keep. They'll be put on YouTube, so if you want to download them directly from YouTube using whatever tools exist, like, please feel free. If you actually just want the recordings, I can, at the end of class, sort of like bundle them all up into a bunch of video files you can download directly off Google Drive. As a part of this class, you own them. You can do whatever you want with them. You can share them with other people. I really don't care. You're paying for the class, so it's up to you. If you do want to reach out to me and talk with me, I prefer Slack DMs. It's a little bit easier for me. Email is not my best strong suit. I'm generally bad at responding to emails. So generally, over Slack, probably the best thing to do. Give me a day to respond. If you don't hear back from me in a day, then please follow up. I will try to respond at least within 24 hours, unless I might even give you a heads up, hey, busy today, but we'll try to get back to you tomorrow, next, or the day after. But I will try to respond at least within a couple days to any questions you have, because you're paying for this class and I want to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. The other thing we're going to do more of for this course in particular is we're going to do interviews with working designers in the AI field. I'm hoping to have about one per week, so every week we'll have lectures, tutorials, and then an interview with a designer. I'm at 2 so far, so we're at least going to make it through the first 2 weeks, and I think we'll probably do more after that. I think this is really great because specifically in this material, I am a working designer. I work in AI, but I don't always do the two together. And I think I want to interview designers who are actively doing this at their day jobs as part of their product jobs, to talk about some of the pitfalls or some of the struggles that they experience or some of the things that are working well for them. I think that'll be a great experience for you to sort of see them. Maybe you can follow those people on LinkedIn or follow them on their social media accounts and sort of see what they're up to and keep an eye on that work and maybe learn from that. And lastly, I should say, like, I have a loose structure for the class, but we've got a small enough group here that if someone is really excited about a certain topic, I'm happy to try to cover that. Now, if it's really far out there or like something that I'm going to need to do a lot of studying on, I might push it to last week or within reason might say no to things. But in general, like if you have topics you want to discuss, like please reach out to me. If you're like, hey, I really want to learn about video models, like we can talk about that or whatever it is. So I'm happy to sort of cover material that people are interested in. I really want to make this a class where people feel like they're getting the most out of it. And if I can help you in any way, please let me know. So this is the rough structure for the class. Again, this week is going to be a little bit of an intro. For some of you, I know that might be a little slow or like, this material. When you watch the video, speed it up, run through it, whatever, skip a section or whatever it is, like that'll be fine. The middle 4 weeks of the class are going to be mostly talking about different types of AI models. I'm really excited to talk about classifiers, so I want to do that first. Then recommendation systems, sort of the Netflix, Amazon model, that sort of thing. And then we'll go into sort of the more popular, like the hype models of right now, which is generative images and generative text. I could probably do a 3-week class just on generative images alone. So we'll see how much material I have each week. I'm going to shoot for like an hour and a half of material per week because I think that's a digestible amount, but also enough to like get you like thinking about things. So each one of these will also come with a little tutorial to sort of see how a product works, but it won't really necessarily go deep into certain things. Personally, I'll talk a little bit about myself in just a minute. I do a lot with generative images, so I have a lot of content around that. I do a little bit with generative text and a fair amount with classifiers. So some weeks might be a little bit lighter. Hopefully I can add to that, or we as a group can sort of like share learnings that we've seen from other people, that sort of thing. And I do sort of leave the last week open as overflow. Maybe we'll go deeper into more generative image stuff. That's what people want. Maybe there's enough questions that we can do some other things. Maybe we can just even do a class where we all meet in person or like over Zoom and hang out or whatever. So last week is kind of up in the air and just sort of we'll see where it goes, but I want to add it in as we think about stuff. So unlike other classes where I do generally have like a quote unquote homework assignment, there probably won't be a lot of homework for this class. Because a lot of it's theory and every week we're jumping to a different model, it's like hard to sort of like imagine a place where we have a lot of homework available. But I would encourage us to use the Slack channel. Like I think the Slack channel could be a great opportunity for us to do discussion, maybe share UIs we've seen we like, or share things we like, links to articles we like, that sort of thing. So please try to feel like it's a community model, and please share whatever you enjoy or whatever you like in our Slack channel. Again, maybe what I'll do is usually what I do for our Slack channel is I make a thread of just like questions. So it's a thread of like, hey, questions from this week. People can add questions there. I can respond to them. Maybe I'll also do like a thread of like inspiration materials, and people can share stuff that way. We'll kind of see how it goes. I will say, like, I've had a couple people reach out to me and say like, hey, can you help me with a project I'm working on? I'm more than happy to do that, assuming that it's a personal project. So as a designer, I do contract work with other companies. So it's a project for your job. Like, I probably won't want to help because I'll be like, this is, a contract. This is how I would make money. But if it's a personal project, I'm happy to talk about it. And even if it's a work project and you can say like, I just want to get your feedback on a thing, I'm happy to talk about that too. I just don't want it to feel like I'm being asked to do a contract, sort of consulting job. So yeah, I'm happy to help with projects here and there as needed. Just DM me. We can find time to schedule. I've got some vacation coming up where I'm going to be out of town a little bit, so I might try to avoid those weeks. But then there's other times where I'm hanging out and happy to chat for 30 minutes over Zoom or something. So just reach out to me and we can talk about that. All right, real quick about me. I know, hopefully you at least did a little bit of Googling about me before signing up for the class. I generally don't like to talk about myself in these classes, but I guess in this case it actually is valuable for me to talk about my experiences and why it makes sense that I'm teaching this class. I've been teaching public, sort of pseudo-public classes for, like 5 years now, all of them within AI. I've previously taught design classes at SVA, the New School. I'm currently teaching at NYU and ITP. So I have a lot of experience teaching both the AI side of things as well as design. A lot of the work that I do today outside of my day job, which I'll talk about in a minute, is more illustrative. So I do visual work for like the New York Times, the New Yorker. So on the left is a spread for the New York Times. I did about 2 or 3 years ago, and on the right is an animation I made for the New Yorker. These all use machine learning tools as a part of them. I've been using machine learning tools for almost a decade now. I think Style Transfer came out in 2015. Which is the first tool I used. So we're almost at a decade of AI tools, which is pretty crazy. So I generally use them in my day-to-day art practice or like design practice outside of my day job. I do have a day job. I am a product designer by trade. I've been working in product design for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. Before that, I was a UX designer. Before that, I was a web designer. Before that, I was a blog designer. Like, I've been working with digital tools for a while now. My past couple jobs have been included in the New York Times, MailChimp, and then today I'm currently at a company called Vistaprint, which allows you to make business cards and that sort of thing. So I have a deep background in doing product design, both at startups as well as at big, large companies. So I'll probably be using that knowledge to sort of inform like what we're doing in this class, right? So some of you might be working at startups where it's just you and an engineer and sort of building things quickly. Others of you might be working at a large company where it's you and a triad of folks with a product manager, an engineering team, maybe a data analyst, like that sort of thing. So I'll try to talk about how a designer fits into these experiences. And I know in the interviews that we're doing with working designers, we talk about that a lot. Like, does the idea come from you? Does it come from an engineer? Like, do you guys form an idea together? Like, where do these products come from? And some of you might also be just like building your own products. And I've done enough of that as well. Less going into the startup route, but just more as like side projects or like little artistic projects. So we'll talk a lot about that as we go through the class as well. So today I actually sort of have like merged a lot of this into my practice. On the left is an image I made for Commercial Type. You might be familiar with them. They make very well-known fonts. I helped design a magazine for them a year or two back, and I did all the illustrations for that using a mix of AI tools, generative tools, hand-done collage process, that sort of thing. And recently I've been working with a restaurant in LA called Gras. I do a lot of brand animation for them, essentially, using a lot of different AI tools. So you can even see, like, in my outside freelance work, like how these practices are kind of merging in a really interesting and fascinating way. And that's sort of what I'm excited about talking about with y'all as well. Before I did AI work, I actually worked with generative art. So using processing, open frameworks, other tools like that. And I would generate little tool UIs for myself. And I actually think it's a great moment for me to be bringing this back into the fold, because I feel like a lot of the tools that we would build for generative AI actually kind of have some correlation to the tools you might need to build for AI. I just said generative AI. Generative tools for generative AI. So I'll touch on this a little bit as we go through class, but I think there's a lot of value up in this. And I'm not saying like this is a beautiful interface at all. I built this for myself in an afternoon just so I could make these tools. But I do think a lot of what's happening, or what did happen in the generative world, is also really helpful in the in sort of thinking about tooling for current AI experiences. So there's some objectives for this class I hope you get out of it, and we can just talk about this, and then if there's things we want to add as we go through feedback and Q&A and that sort of thing, I'm happy to. So the first is there's a couple key categories of AI tools that I want people to be mostly familiar with, and sort of understanding how they work, or like understanding the inputs and outputs of them. And we'll talk about that more later this today, about like inputs versus outputs, that sort of thing. Obviously, lots of people know ChatGPT. ChatGPT is like sort of the one that everyone is aware of. Maybe you're aware of some of the text-to-image tools like DALL-E or Midjourney, or Firefly, which is Adobe's tool. But those are just two types of AI models. So we're going to talk a lot about the types of models, what each model is good for, pros and cons of each of them, and sort of understand how they work. So alongside that, each of these models, through varying degrees, have different affordances. And by affordances, I mean like things that they're meant to do and things they're not meant to do, as well as sort of the inners of like what gets input into it, what comes out of it. And I want to consider how those different pieces affect the interface we're building for them. And I also want to talk about both consumer models, meaning like a general public model, but also for like professionals, because I think a lot of the areas where these tools might actually go is actually more helping professionals, right? So professional video makers, professional audio editors, artists, writers. Like there's a lot of places where these tools are helping the more professional, say, I don't know, high touch user or like a very experienced user, that sort of thing. And I want to consider how these AI tools might alter the traditional product creation workflows, right? So I think we're seeing a lot of people saying like AI is going to change everything. I'm not that bullish on AI tools, but I do think AI tools are going to change some things. And considering how we think about those tools might change our own workflow processes in building these products. In other cases, I also think like we actually need a traditional, quote unquote, traditional product design practice to come into these things and actually sort of rethink how we use these tools, right? To be a little bit more user-centered. So we'll sort of be bringing some user-centered approaches to this material, in part because I think that helps ground these and like, why are we using these tools? It's not just to like show off that we're making a technology, but it is to say we're solving actual user problems. And the best way to do that is through AI tools for whatever reason. We'll talk about what those reasons might be later today. And lastly, and maybe this is the most important one, I want designers that take this class to be able to advocate for themselves. We are kind of seeing, like, especially at this exact moment in time, I'm recording this in January of 2024, we're seeing another big round of tech layoffs. And there's many reasons for why that's happening right now, but I do think one of them is this hype that like AI tools are going to make it easier to work with less people. AI tools will eliminate the need for a designer or the need for a engineer because these tools will just replace them. And I have to say, I think that's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. I've worked with these tools for many, many years, and I don't think we need less people involved. I think we need more people involved. And with that in mind, I want you to be able to advocate for yourself as to why a designer still needs to be in the room for AI, like when building AI tools. It's not as easy to say as we're just going to replace it with an AI model and that'll be done, because AI models still need interfaces. They still need considerations around what the user experience should be. And I think this is like one of the biggest problems I see in a lot of the hype that we're hearing around AI today, is that we really we need less people in the room, or we can afford to pay less people. I actually think that's like kind of like when, I mean, I'm starting to date myself here. Also, this was before me, but like when email came out, people were like, oh, you're never going to need to print anything again in your life. And instead we found out people are printing out their emails and people are printing out more things. Similarly, like I do think a lot of these AI tools, while very fascinating and very cool and quote unquote time saving, actually require a lot more user experience development, especially at this exact moment in time. Maybe 5 years from now, we've got a bunch of patterns and we really don't need to worry about what the actual experience should be. But I would say, especially right now, with this sort of new paradigm of these tools, we need designers more than ever. So I hope this is like, if anything, you leave this class and you're like, I understand a little bit about how AI works. I understand my role in like making better products. And now I can go talk to a hiring manager about why I should be the one that you work with. Or, if I'm more senior in my role, I can say like, we need to hire more if we're going to start to invest more in AI tools, that sort of thing. Okay, so so that's just a brief overview of the course and some of the objectives I want you to get a sense of. We'll jump into the next lesson now.